Reclaiming Catholic Intimacy, formerly Charting Toward Intimacy, covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised.
About 6 months into my marriage, I had just decided I wouldn't ever like sex, and I could honestly live without it. I didn't like it very much, and I didn't see any way out of this area of not liking it. It wasn't pleasurable. It was sometimes painful, and I just still really thought it was like bad and dirty. There was a lot of purity culture influence from it. So I want to share with you today how I got out of that way of thinking and how you really can too.
Welcome to Reclaiming Catholic Intimacy, the podcast for Catholic women that helps you improve your sex life, strengthen your marriage, and embrace God's design for love. My name is Ellen Holloway, and today I am sharing with you how it is absolutely possible for you to get out of that space where sex just feels like something you could just not do for the rest of your life. Because this was me. This was me at 6 months into our marriage. I had experienced orgasm a few times during foreplay type activities, but whenever that would happen, I always felt very done. And then if we moved into intercourse afterward, I felt used a little bit, honestly. It felt like I didn't enjoy that part of it. My body was done. It had received its orgasm. And then times that we would try to wait, I would try to hold off my orgasm until intercourse, then it just wouldn't come. And so then intercourse still didn't feel good. So intercourse either felt like nothing or sometimes it hurt. And I still was dealing with a lot of the painful sex. And at that point, I could easily go the rest of my life without ever having sex again. I was so done with it. But I knew deep down, there was just this voice in the back of my head that something wasn't right about that. It was not right to just give up on sex altogether. And I knew it had to be better than what I was experiencing. There was something missing. And so I started researching. I found some Catholic books on sex and NFP. One of them that I mention all the time is Holy Sex by Dr. Gregory Popcak. Honestly, that book was such a catalyst for my husband and I in our sex life and in improving it. So I owe a lot to that book. And I think that book is incredibly helpful. I found the theology of the body, and I really started digging in and researching in that area. I found NFP and really learned a lot about it and started seeing such beauty in NFP. And I started this podcast. And this podcast was an NFP podcast. At the point that I started this podcast, I was still very uncomfortable with sex. Very much so. I thought NFP was amazing and that everybody needed to know about it. But I was still very much on the journey with recognizing sex as something that was good and holy and enjoyable. Things changed as I started studying and as I brought this into regular conversation with my husband. We read some of the books together that I had found, and we started becoming just a tiny bit more comfortable with talking about sex. And I surrounded myself with positive views of sex. And those positive views slowly started to kind of sink in to my brain. So this podcast and me talking about NFP was incredibly helpful in my journey because it was so tangential to sex and intimacy that I was getting such beautiful, good views of sex through this podcast. I got more comfortable asking for what I wanted. And that is what actually allowed my husband and I to finally start figuring out the orgasm thing and getting to a point where sex was actually enjoyable for me. And I got more comfortable with my husband's enjoyment of sex because I was starting to see sex as a good and holy thing. And so while my desire for sex still was not there at all, I could at least recognize my husband's desire as good. It was no longer uncomfortable for me that he wanted to have sex with me. I no longer felt used or like an object or something like that when my husband wanted to have sex with me. And that really allowed us to get even more comfortable talking and requesting. I found lingerie that I actually liked. And slowly, one day at a time, I was able to really cultivate a healthy desire for sex, because we made sex something that I actually enjoyed and looked forward to. We also found that I had responsive desire. And so we learned how to work with that and how to lean into that. I started researching and understanding like where responsive desire comes from, and really embracing responsive desire and recognizing it as such a beautiful, good thing. Realizing that I didn't have to want sex immediately in order to initiate or say yes to my husband's initiating. I could say yes without actually wanting sex because I knew that my desire could grow out of that, because sex was something that I did in fact enjoy. That was not something that I could have said back at 6 months into our marriage, right? I couldn't have known that my desire for sex would then grow out of starting foreplay, because at that point, sex wasn't something that I enjoyed. But I can trust my responsive desire now because I know that I enjoy sex, right? So it's kind of this like chicken and the egg thing. We got to figure out the responsive desire, but we also have to make sure that sex is something that we actually enjoy. It was a journey, and it still is a journey. Sometimes those purity culture lies, they pop into my head and I have to address them. But then other times I put on lingerie and I look at myself in the mirror and I think, damn, I look good. And my husband's going to love this. That thought could never have appeared in my head in, 2019. Never. In 2017. Never. But it took time, and it took intentional work to cultivate a healthy view of sex and intimacy, and to cultivate a healthy desire for sex. This didn't just happen. This happened because I decided that it wasn't actually okay to just not like sex, or to just say, oh, I could just go the rest of my life without sex, or to just submit to a sexless marriage. I decided that wasn't okay. And then I got to work and I rolled my sleeves up. And it took years. I didn't have this podcast, right? This is the podcast I needed. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I share and what I teach, and the 8-week group coaching program that I do with women, because I can actually lead you through this process way shorter than it took for me. In 8 weeks, we can do some incredible work. And I'm actually opening up my next cohort really soon. So keep your ears out, keep your eyes out. I'll be announcing it on the podcast for sure. It's just a few weeks away at this point. Might even only be 1 week away. I don't actually know when this podcast is like getting slotted for. I just want you to know that it is possible for you to do the same journey that I went on. It's possible because I was in the depths of that pit. I was the person whose face turned beet red the second that you mentioned sex. I was the person who shared an Amazon account with my parents, wanted to order books about sex, and so decided to open up another Amazon account and pay the shipping just so they wouldn't see it. That was me. That is not me now. I order a lot of books on that shared Amazon account, and my parents just know. It is possible for you, and I'm here for you. And this is the podcast I needed when I first got married. This is the podcast I needed on my journey, and I hope that this is helpful for you. I hope that the work that I do here is what's helping you on this journey too. And just know, like, I pray for you guys all the time. All of you guys who are trying to improve your sex life in one way or another, right? Maybe it's something small, maybe it's something big. But either way, just know that I've been on this journey. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and I want you to get there. And I know that you can. Thanks so much for listening. If you have ever gotten any value from this podcast, could you do me a favor really quick? Go into the podcast app that you are listening in, and if it gives you an option to rate and review, please rate and review this podcast. It helps us so much in reaching new listeners and spreading the word about this podcast. Thanks so much for listening.